This on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Myrtetus, it's Brian Smith. It is Flyers game day. Flyers coming off a win over the Washington Capitals, a 2-1 win. But tonight presents a very unique challenge as the Edmonton Oilers are in town. And no matter what you say about Edmonton, they've been through kind of up and down this year. They were one of the best teams that started off this season. Then really hit his skid and fired their coach. Very similar to the Flyers in that regard. But you're dealing with two of the most dynamic talents in this entire league, and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Bry, how do you limit what they do?
I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow.
You can figure it out. You can take it down there and coach.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people beat this team right now based on their defense and their goaltending. I mean, that's kind of the way it's been for the last little bit here. And the thing with the Oilers has always been, you've got these two guys up your top, and you're still hovering around the 8th seed. I mean, that's got to be, that's why somebody's got to figure out what's going on. And that's what ended up costing Dave Tippett his job. The team has had a very, very good thing going at the American Hockey League level the last couple of years, and that head coach Jay Woodcroft is now up at the big club. And the word on the street around this team with the folks that cover it on a regular basis is that the past 9 games that they've looked a lot like the Bakersfield Condors, which is their American League team. So it's interesting to see how that approach works with this core. But you've got to really just limit the grade A chances that you give them as best you can, you have to figure out a way to deal with both of their lines. And for the Flyers, that's going to be a bit of a tall order tonight. But again, they're going to do the best they can to match things up and just got to try to slow them down and make the other players beat you is what it comes down to. And it's not too much different than Crosby, Ovechkin in their heyday, even now to some extent. But it's trying to figure out a way to limit the damage those guys can do, because you're never going to keep them off the board all night long.
Yeah, they're a team. They're 10th in the NHL at giving up. Well, I guess they're 22nd in the NHL in goals allowed. So, or 10th, they've given up the 10th most goals allowed per game, depending on which way you want to look at it.
Yeah,
they've averaged giving up 3.23. But Mikko Koskinen is going tonight for them, not Mike Smith. And goaltending's been a huge issue for this team, but not over the last bunch of games.
Right.
For Koskinen. In his last 8 games, he's 6-0-1. He's got a .915 save percentage and has been very good. And he has not been the issue. Now, part of that is also the coaching change, attention to detail in the 200-foot game, providing a better environment for the goaltenders. Koskinen's been giving them saves, and when this team gets saves with the offensive firepower that they have, a lethal power play that seems to be getting its feet back on the ground again as well. 3rd in the NHL on the power play. They're a team that is very, very dangerous. And we always talk about it, Brian. It's not necessarily who you play, it's when you play them sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Flyers beat them their first road game of the season. I want to say October 19th. Was
something
the
like that, yeah.
Yeah, they beat them 5-3 in Edmonton, and they were out of the gates playing tremendous. They were 5-0 at the time. And you're playing them again when they're starting to get their game back in order. So this is going to be, even though the Flyers have played much better of late, coming off the win against Washington, this is going to be a tough task at hand tonight against an Edmonton team that just lost 2-1 in Carolina the other day. Maybe deserved a better fate in that game.
The crazy thing about the last meeting between the two teams is that it was still this season. It was so long,
like 3 years ago.
Such different circumstances ago that it just seems crazy that it was in this actual campaign. I mean, when you look at what the Flyers did that night, when looking at where they're at now, this is where we thought this season was going. 5 games in, they had scored 23 goals. Had not done that since the 86-87 season. Cam Atkinson and Claude Giroux had each scored in every game on the year. Atkinson was having the best start of his career. For Giroux, 4 goals in his first 5 games. That was just the second time in his career that he'd done that. Sean Couturier, 3 straight games. Justin Braun He had a +4 rating in that game, and he had already scored 2 goals on the season. Ivan Provorov +3. Again, that's where back then things were going exactly where I think Chuck Fletcher and the front office thought this team was going to go this year. And then, for whatever reason, the wheels came off. So it's really kind of nutty to think that it's the same season. But again, it's a long marathon. It's the old adage, marathon, not a sprint. It's figuring out a way to get through the entire year and put yourself in a good position to be in the mix for the Stanley Cup when the year is over. Now the Oilers over the course of this season again have been hot and cold. It started the year. It's like, oh, they figured it out. Now they're going to be unstoppable. And then they fell all the way out of the playoffs for a little while. They were beyond that 8th spot for a little bit, and now they've been able to come back and try to nail things down a little bit. And when you look, you mentioned that Carolina game. That was one of those games that kind of turns on a review, because Edmonton scored early in that game, and they pulled it off for offsides. And a move like that changes the entire course of how that game rolled along. So like you said, potentially deserved a better fate. And a lot of times when you are in a situation like that where you play a game and you deserve a better fate, you come out kind of like gangbusters the next night. So that's something the Flyers are going to have to kind of settle down and deal with. We heard from the Oilers today. They're not overlooking the Flyers. They're looking at this as not a club that has won 3 times in its last 21 games or whatever it is, but they're looking at this as a club that knocked off the Washington Capitals the other night,
and Florida,
and the Flyers caught, the Flyers beat the one, but same deal, and the Flyers again caught Washington at the right time. They've got the Caps right now playing at less than stellar hockey, so they're going to kind of hope that they've done the same thing here with the Oilers.
The Oilers are the microcosm of the fact, like kind of the theory that hockey is the ultimate team sport. Now, every guy that dresses, with the exception of the backup goaltenders on the most nights, plays north of at least 9 minutes, right? Most players play double-digit minutes.
To me, it's very rare to see a player in a regular game under 6 minutes without an injury.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a guy that is on his NHL debut and you're really taking care of him. Yeah, most guys in this league are going to play at least 7.
Yep. And
that's about 8 shifts.
Yeah.
So 2 shifts, about 3 shifts of period roughly.
Now you look at Edmonton, and they have the 2 top scoring players in the NHL. McDavid's got 75 points. He's tops.
Right.
With 74 points is 2 players. Jonathan Huberdeau of the Florida Panthers, who's having a fantastic year. He'd be my Hart Trophy winner if I was voting on it today. And Leon Draisaitl are each tied with 74 points. McDavid, 28 goals, 47 assists, 75 points in 52 games. Draisaitl has 36 goals, 38 assists, 74 points in 53 games.
Mm-hmm.
You have those 2 players, again, 2 players sitting in the top 2 spots in the entire NHL in points, and Draisaitl up there in goals. And the team is by points percentage the 9th seed right now in the Western Conference, not a playoff team.
Yeah. Fired
their coach. If that's not telling about the team aspect of this game, then nothing points to that being the case more so than the Edmonton Oilers.
And you can see it too in the plus minus. And I know this is a stat that some people consider antiquated, and it is depending on how you're using it. But in this particular illustrative example, so McDavid 75 points plus 11, Huberdeau 75 points plus 23. You go down a couple more pegs, you've got Draisaitl 74 points plus 12. Sounds good until you get down to the Colorado guys. Nazem Kadri 66 points, Mikko Rantanen 25 points. Kadri's a plus 22, Rantanen a plus 34. Wow. And then Johnny Gaudreau 65 points plus 40. So those numbers kind of just if you take those numbers and then go over and look at the standings, you see the difference between where these individual players' teams are, relative to each other.
Yeah, and you're right. Plus minus, I never looked at it as an individual player stat. It's a team stat.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I see that plus 40 for Johnny Gaudreau, and I go, Darryl Sutter.
Yep.
That's the first thing I think of, Darryl Sutter. And the preaching of defense and structure and all of those things. Let's take a timeout. Flyers and Oilers from Wells Fargo Center tonight will kick off the second half of this 8-game homestand. Also kick off a very busy month of March. 15 games in March, 15 in April. That tells me there's 30 left in the season. It's Brian Smith, Jason Myrtetus.
We get into analytics.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at it now that I talked to Ian Anderson. We'll take a quick timeout. We're back after this on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.
You're listening to the Flyers pregame show on the Flyers broadcast. Flyers Broadcast Network.
Back at the Wells Fargo Center, East Football, Brian Smith, Jason Myrtetus. It is Flyers game day. Flyers and Oilers coming up from Wells Fargo Center, kicking off the second half of this 8-game homestand tonight. It's Edmonton tonight. Then Thursday, it's the Minnesota Wild. Saturday is the Chicago Blackhawks. And then they wrap up with, I can't remember who they're playing. Vegas, yeah.
Next Tuesday.
And then they'll head out on the road for a couple, head to Florida and Carolina. But it's Flyers, Oilers tonight, and the spectacle that is Connor McDavid. We didn't get to see that spectacle last year.
We haven't seen this guy in almost 3 years, which kind of surprised me. But it was February. It's been more than 3 years, I guess. February of 19. February 1st or 2nd of 2019 was the last time the Oilers were here. The 1920 visit was wiped out due to the stoppage, and then they didn't come in in 2021. They've only been here twice in the last 4.5 years, which is, kind of disappointing if you're just a hockey fan and you want to see the best player in the world. But that's how long it's been. They have it's interesting. They've got a call up tonight, playing his first NHL game in quite some time. And the way that this all kind of shook out, they brought him up from Bakersfield, excuse me, and he hasn't played since the end of the 18-19 season. He was called up the day after they were here last time. So it's that's how long it's been. It's just been.
Who is it?
I am looking for the name right now. I had it earlier, and of course I didn't write it down.
Okay. Well, we'll find him.
Give me a moment.
Take your time. Edmonton right now, like I mentioned before, on the outside looking into the playoff picture, they do have a record through 53 games of 29-21-3, 61 points. They're tied in points with Dallas, but they played one more game. So that's why they're on the outside looking in from a points perspective standpoint. Flyers coming off that win, just their third win in 2022. But they're looking at their first win of the month of March in quick order, kind of like they did in February. They won the first game of the month. But 15 games in this month. Now, February was pretty spread out because that was the makeup round, and they didn't have a ton of games to make up.
Right.
But 15 games this month, 15 next month. How about these opponents for the month? Edmonton, Minnesota, Chicago, Vegas, Florida, Carolina on the road, Montreal, Nashville at home, Ottawa on the road, Islanders at home, Detroit on the road, St. Louis on the road, Colorado, Nashville, Minnesota, all on the road to wrap up the end of the month. So
yeah.
It's going to be a busy month from a game standpoint.
Yep, absolutely. It was Brad Malone, by the way.
Okay.
The Oiler being called up from Bakersfield. I believe he might be the captain down there. But the schedule here in these last 2 months was actually always going to be like this. In fact, the Flyers actually are kind of dodging what, like tonight would have been the second half of a back-to-back on the original schedule. St. Louis was supposed to be here last night, but that was moved up a week. So from here on out, essentially it's every other day on average, 15 games and 31 days in March, 15 and 30 in April. And that's just because of the way the schedule was set up for the Olympic break. And, it doesn't feel like we just went through 3 weeks where we kind of got a bunch of time off, but that's really what happened for this team. They only had to play about 2 times a week here in the past 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks really. So they only had to move in, 4 games from earlier in the year into that 3-week break that the Olympics didn't happen. So now it's kind of back to reality a little bit. But and we've talked about this before. This is going to let them get into a routine. It's going to let them get into a rhythm. They may actually be looking forward to getting back on the road and playing some of these road games and doing some of the things they do as a team on the road. But what's coming down the pike pretty quick here is the trade deadline and what happens in the closure room. That 1,000th game is scheduled right now for March 17th in Pakistan. Yep, that's going to be a big day if everything holds true. So there's a lot that could change between now and then, but it's going to be a busy month. It's going to be an eventful month. It's going to be, I think, an entertaining month, regardless of where the team is in the schedule. They are hoping to get Kevin Hayes back, maybe as soon as Saturday.
Yeah.
There's a couple other guys that are knocking on the door, potentially coming back. It does sound like Ryan Ellis is not going to be one of them. So
maybe headed for surgery.
That's unfortunate. The Flyers probably won't get a look at him, but there's a lot coming down the pike here, just in terms of you're getting some guys back, plus there's going to be some movement, and for the folks that like the chaos of trades and all that. That's definitely coming. The Flyers have a couple of college prospects, notably Noah Cates. Bobby Brink might say, these guys might say, all right, pandemic's over, we're settling back down, I'm going pro.
Time to make some money.
Yeah, let's see what happens. So you've got that, you've got the college free agent crop, and then whoever comes back in whatever trades there are. So there's a lot to be looking forward to here over the next 60 days or so between now and the end of the season.
I'm going to tell you, we're going to take a break, and I'm going to tell you when we come back what I'm looking forward to with the remainder of this season the most.
All right.
There's a little radio tease for you. I know our producer back at the station, Pat Egan, love that. So stay tuned. We'll tell you what that is, and we'll get into more aspects of this game. It's Carter Harvey versus Mikko Koskinen, the Oilers versus the Flyers, as the homestand continues. It is Flyers game day on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.
You're listening to the Flyers pregame show on the Flyers broadcast. Ian Smith on the Flyers Broadcast Network.
All right, we are at the East Food Hall inside the Wells Fargo Center. It is Flyers game day. Brian Smith, Jason Myrtetus taking you right up to Tim Saunders and Steve Coates in the countdown to face-off as the Flyers will try and deal with one of the toughest tasks at hand in the NHL. And the defense in particular, not getting turnstiled by the speed of Colin Davis. When I watch him play and I go, oh my God, this is a nightmare.
You know, it is. It's not just the speed that he's got that is remarkable to watch. It is the effect that speed has on NHL quality defensemen. And he just, he turns them into pylons. And a lot of times I watch some of these clips that are out there on Twitter, and he goes 1-on-5 or whatever, and everybody's freaking out about how great it is. And to me, it's like is the dress blue or yellow? It's like, are you seeing great offense or really bad defense? But it's a little bit of both, because he causes that defense to be really bad. The Rangers one from earlier this year is a good point to me, because he's coming in, and first of all, the two guys that are furthest back, their gap control is terrible. And then there's guys on the flanks that are coasting, but they're all doing this because they don't know what he's going to do. Like, they're just he comes in at the speed that he does and at the moves that he has, he just freezes it, and then he goes from there. So, I'm looking forward to see it, kind of like in a, I don't know, the way you look forward to watching the highlights of a car accident, I guess. I don't know. It's like I'm not looking forward to him shredding the Flyers, but I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in person. If it comes down to it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about him is not only is he incredibly fast skater, there's a lot of guys that are really fast in the league.
Right.
Guys that can get up and down the ice, like Dylan Larkin, I mean, really good player. But nobody can play the game as fast as he can. His mind can think the game at the speed his body can move. And that's something that not a lot of guys can say at any level.
Yeah.
And it's just so remarkable to see. It's so dynamic. The explosion that he has with that first step is just disgusting. His top end speed, hands, it's all there. But he's a spectacle for sure. So now time to pay off my teams.
Okay.
So the thing that I'm looking forward to over this next 30 games, 15 in March, 15 in April, is, despite the fact that the team doesn't have the team success of late, of their last 6 or 7 games, I'm interested to see if the structure of their game, the process of their game, the details of their game can kind of be sustainable. We know that they're depleted from a talent standpoint for a litany of reasons. Injuries, they don't have enough talent. And with the injuries, they really don't have enough talent.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see if that structure of their game and the way that they've been playing of late, even though they only have a couple of wins lately, they've been playing like a much better team from a structural standpoint and an execution standpoint. Key segments in games have hurt them, yes. And those things need to be cleaned up. But overall, they played much better. And there's no participation trophies here in the NHL. But they have played much better. And in particular, guys like Travis Sanheim, Travis Konechny, I want to see those players, and Ivan Provorov, I want to see them play with more structure, more consistency, and finish the year off good. Because I do believe that you can take some of that positivity into the offseason and translate it into next season for all of those 3 players and more. And not only that, but, provided who's going to be here going forward, I think that's the thing that's most intriguing to me.
Yeah,
they keep playing hard and they keep playing structurally, and the process is good.
Yeah, the next 2 months are about setting the stage for next season. That is all that's all that there is to worry about. And so you are going to use these 30 games to figure out who's going to be a part of that, and what role they're going to play, and who isn't. And so that's all part of it.
If they fit and where they fit,
yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, that's all part of it. So to me, that almost, given that where they're at, that almost to me is an advantage heading into 22-23, because when you are one of those teams that hovers around the 8th spot in the playoffs, you are going all out gung-ho to get in and then make some damage from there, when the reality is that you probably don't have enough firepower to finish the thing off, right? So you want to get a playoff run, you want to go as far as you can, but a lot of times you do that. Now you got a first round exit. Now it's time to regroup from there. You've been so crazy trying to get to that point that now you got to go back and look at it and think, okay, well, how did all this go? What do we want to do? Now the Flyers are in a situation where they can meticulously plan this out as they go here over the next 30 games, and then they know exactly what they want to bring in over the course of the summer, both in the draft and in free agency, and how they want to position themselves moving forward. They have to either commit to Mike Yeo on a permanent basis or fill that position. I would think with all the uncertainty going, they're going to want to keep guys that have been here for a while. So we'll see what happens. But they do have an advantage.
Yeah, and the position that Ken Holland in is far different. You're right. And when you have the best players in the world, it's playoffs. If you don't make it, let's get rid of everybody in Edmonton as well. But we shall see. Stay tuned. Tim Saunders, Steve Coates. The countdown to face-off is on the way, followed by the first period action between the Flyers and the Oilers. You've been listening to Flyers Game Day on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.
We're listening to 97.5 Fanatic.